Hello there, and welcome to yet another session of Coffee with the Curriculum Coordinator, known popularly as CCC. I'll be your host, Mr. Evans, and for this session, we're going to be exploring assessments in the PYP section of the school. This is a very fitting session because we're in the assessment period, and this session is going to explore some of the features of how we assess our students at AIS. Stay tuned. Just to give a little recap of what the purpose of this session is, this is a biannual session where we come together to demystify the teaching and learning processes at AIS. For this particular session, we're looking at assessments in the PYP, and the best place to start for all things assessment is the assessment policy. This document can be found on the AIS website, and it outlines all the procedures, the whats, the whens, the whys, and the how we assess our students within the department. This is a guiding document that is reviewed every few years, and it is appraised with the best practices in the field of education. So go to our website and take a look and have a read at what the policy is and what it contains. We're going to give a brief overview of it right now so that you can see the main features of assessment at AIS. Now, within our assessment policy, there is an infographic that gives a great outline of the what, the when, the why, and the how we assess our students within the primary department. So within this document, you're going to find two categories of assessment: formative assessments and summative assessments. Formative assessments are assessments for learning. They are assessments that are meant to inform the learning process and give feedback on continuing learning. On the other hand, summative assessments are assessments that are meant to report on the learning process. So these are the two main categories we have, and they are divided into further procedures that we're going to be looking at during this session. So for the first session, we are going to look at online map testing, and then we're going to also look at our internal testing procedures and also other ways that we use to evidence learning within the department. Now at AIS PYP, we tend to lean more towards assessment for learning. Now this is the assessment that informs the learning process and gives feedback to the teacher and the student. So all our assessments, sometimes even the summative assessments, are used formatively because we'd like the assessment data and the valuable information and feedback that comes from assessing students is used to improve on the learning process. So this is a large component of our assessment procedures, and it recurs throughout the school day and throughout scheduled times in the school year. Now, one of the more regular ways we use to find out what our students know is their regular homework. Homework is a form of assessment since it provides feedback to the teacher on student understanding. So homework provided at the PYP level is meant to give feedback and also reinforce some of the concepts that have been learned in the duration through which the homework has been given. So homework at AIS is a form of assessment, and the data drawn from specifically the interactive homework that we give. This is Study Ladder. Study Ladder provides a way for us to track and monitor student progress and understanding on some of the concepts that have been covered during the school week. So this is a regular process, and it is one of the reports that we provide to parents at the end of the term. So at the end of the term, you are provided with a comprehensive study ladder report showing some of the strengths and areas of improvement for your students, with particular emphasis to the concepts that have been covered during the school term. Now on to MAP assessments. MAP stands for Measures of Academic Progress. It is one of the more formal formative assessments that we use at AIS, and it is administered 3 times a year. This is on the 4th week of every term, and this is very strategic because we'd like to get student data and feedback so that we can inform the rest of the teaching term. That's why we do not administer this test at the end of the term. The information gathered from this report is meant to inform teaching for the rest of the term and also report on some of the progress and growth that students have experienced in the previous term. Now, this test is adaptive. That means it adapts to the level of student understanding based on how the student answers the provided questions. If a student gets a question wrong, then they get a much easier question until the test finds an optimal level for their understanding. That's why this is a very reliable test for us, and it informs so many procedures. It is the basis of some of our units and also some of our overviews for some of the core subjects like math and language. Now over to a more summative form of assessment. These are the AIS internal assessments done within the primary department. These are written assessments that are offered in the second and third terms of the year. They are designed by the team of teachers and administered to provide reporting data for the end of the term. Now, these assessments will be reported on in term 2 and in term 3. They often feature levels. The assessment data is reported as levels. Now, these levels indicate the percentage of performance for the student on the assessment that is provided. These assessments are provided in numeracy, language, ICT, French, and Kiswahili subjects. Now, assessments are all about evidencing student learning. And that's why we do not only rely on structured or formal times for assessments to provide this form of evidence. So there are other ways and means that teachers use to gather evidence on student growth and student learning throughout the school term. These may be more regular or more spontaneous, but they also supplement the assessment information and the reports that go out at the end of every school term. For parents new to the IBPYP and AIS in general, you may have come across the terms UOI. This stands for Unit of Inquiry. It is an organizational unit that we use to organize our teaching objectives for each learning quarter. So these units have a central idea and the key understanding within which we plug in all our objectives for the other subjects. So this unit is driven by a central idea, and the central idea is assessed using a summative assessment project at the end of every unit. Now, these summative projects can also be worked on during the course of the unit or given as one task at the end of the unit. Now, you will notice students coming home with projects and presentations to prepare to show their understanding of the central idea and the key concepts of the unit. This is one more way we use to gather evidence on student understanding on a bigger scale. They are celebrations of the unit, and sometimes parents are invited to come and see some of these exhibitions during the school term. Now, these summative assessments done at the end of every unit are meant to be authentic and performance-based. This means that the teachers design them to mimic real-world and real-life situations where students will get opportunities to apply the skills, knowledge, and attitudes acquired during the course of the unit. Now, one of the more elaborate summative assessments that we have within the PYP or the primary years program is the exhibition. The exhibition is an all-encompassing project, a big summative assessment for the year 6 student. It involves bringing up all the skills, the knowledge, and the attitudes acquired throughout their primary years into an elaborate project that is presented as a celebration of learning. Now, for the Year 6 parents, we'll be having a session later on this term to kickstart this process by exploring the role of the parent, the teacher, and the student during this process. As emphasized throughout this presentation, assessment is all about gathering evidence and documenting student growth on learning. Now, this is not only the domain of the teacher. We have empowered students within the primary department to gather evidence of their own growth and learning. Now, this manifests in the e-portfolio document. Now, this is an online document where students gather evidences of growth in all their subject areas. Now, this is done at the end of every term and is kick-started at the midterm break. So students will have this as an assignment to work on with guidance, of course, from the teachers, but this is one of the reports that go out at the end of the school term. It is meant to complement the student report, the MAP report, and the study ladder report. Now, we have committed ourselves within the primary department to make sure that assessments are a transparent process. Assessments should be transparent to all stakeholders. This is students and parents included as well. So we have taken initiatives to make sure that parents are familiar with the testing procedures. We have opened up our testing platforms to parents at one point, having parents try the MAP test themselves and see the student testing experience. So we are committed to making sure that assessments are not a dreary experience for students. They're not something to be feared, they're something to be welcomed, and it is assessment for the student and not of the student. So please make sure you visit our website and download yourself a copy of the school assessment policy and read on some of the initiatives and the procedures we have for assessments at AIS. So in line with keeping assessments a transparent procedure, we're going to use this last session to demystify the MAP report. Now, this is an external report that is generated after students take the MAP assessments. Now, you're going to get this report 3 times in a year and would like parents to understand exactly what this report means. So that's why we generate the family report. This is a report destined for homes and families to understand student growth and also support student learning from home. So have a listen at this expert from NWEA, which is the organizing body that supplies MAP assessments.
Hi, I'm Tammy Hunter. I'm an educator, a parent, and a designer on the NWEA Professional Learning Team. I'd like to tell you about the MAP Growth Family Report. I'll introduce you to the report, show you where to find it, and offer some insights as to how you might use it to guide conversations with your students' families. Family Report gives you an opportunity to share MAP growth results with your students and their families. This report makes it easy to see not only how students are achieving, but also how they're growing. Let's take a closer look. For each subject, your student will receive a score on something called the RIT scale. The RIT scale is unique to NWEA and is used to assess students from kindergarten through high school. It's especially designed to measure growth over time. The solid line on the graph represents the student scores. The dotted line represents the NWEA norms. These are the typical scores for each grade level, subject, and season for students across the country. In this example, Christopher is a 4th grade student who took the MAP Growth Reading Assessment this fall. Christopher's score last fall was just below the dotted line. His score went down 1 point between fall and winter, but then he showed fantastic growth between winter and spring, 17 points. He dropped a couple of points over the summer, which isn't unusual. Christopher's current score puts him at the 50th percentile, which means that his score was at or above the level of 50% of other fourth graders in reading. The achievement data tells us how Christopher is doing each season. To get a more complete picture of Christopher's progress, we can also look at his growth over time. The growth section shows Christopher's family that he's at the 65th percentile for growth in reading, which means that he grew as much or more than 65% of similar students across the country. This is something to get excited about. The report also includes projections, which tell us how Christopher is likely to perform on future assessments, like the state test. Older students will also have projections for the ACT and the SAT exams. Although Christopher's score reflects his above average growth, he's not on track to be proficient on the state test. As you review the projections, let families know what you'll be doing in class to help their student grow, and consider suggesting some resources they can use to work with their child at home. The end of the report lists questions for families to ask you, like, does my child need extra help in any specific areas? And when will my child's progress be measured again? Consider using these questions to guide your conversations. If families have additional questions about map growth, they may want to reference the Family Toolkit. The URL is included on the report. The Map Growth Family Report helps you build partnerships with families. Use it to come to a shared understanding of where your students are, to start conversations about supporting student needs, and to celebrate the progress your students are making.
Thank you so much for joining us for this session of CCC. For any queries or questions you may have, please reach out to the primary leadership team who will be able to answer all your concerns regarding assessments or other matters. Thank you for tuning in.